So you're ready to get a table saw. Awesome. This tool is the heart of most woodworking shops. But then you hit a wall. You see two popular sizes: the compact 8 1/4 inch saw, and the standard 10-inch saw. Which one is right for you? It's a question I get all the time. It feels like a huge decision and you don't want to make the wrong choice. You're probably wondering if the smaller one is good enough or if you need to go big. It's a classic woodworking dilemma. And today, we're going to sort it out once and for all. No confusing jargon, just straight talk. The goal here is simple. We're going to put both saws to the test. We'll look at what makes each one tick, what they're good at, and where they might fall short. Think of it like a friendly competition. We're not just going to read spec sheets, we're going to build something, a real project that will push these saws and show us what they're really made of. This way you can see them in action. You'll understand the practical differences, not just the numbers on a box. We'll find out which one is the champ for the everyday woodworker. This isn't just about power or size. It's about what you need for your projects, your space, and your budget. An 8 1/4 inch saw might be perfect for a small garage shop. It's easier to move around and store. A 10-inch saw might give you more cutting capacity for bigger projects down the road. Both have their place. The key is figuring out which place is your shop. We'll explore everything from making precise cuts to handling thick wood. We'll cover the nitty-gritty details that matter when you're in the middle of a project. By the end of this, you'll have a super clear picture. You'll know the pros and cons of each saw like the back of your hand. You'll understand how they feel to use and what kind of results you can expect. My hope is that you'll be able to walk into the store or browse online with total confidence. You'll know exactly which saw is going to help you build amazing things without breaking the bank or taking over your entire workspace. Let's dive in and get this showdown started. First up, let's talk about the 8 1/4 inch table saw. This is the newer kid on the block. Brands like DeWalt, Milwaukee, and Skill have all jumped on this trend. These saws were born out of new job site safety rules, but they've become a huge hit with hobbyists. Why? They are incredibly compact and lightweight. You can easily tuck one under a workbench or put it in the trunk of your car. Price-wise, they are usually a bit friendlier on the wallet, often coming in under $400. They're designed for folks with limited space or those who need to move their tools around a lot. The main feature here is portability. These saws have smaller motors and of course a smaller blade. This means they have a shallower cut depth. You can typically cut through a 2x4 in a single pass, but thicker materials like a 4x4 post will require you to flip the board over. The rip capacity, the maximum width you can cut, is also generally smaller. They come with decent fences and safety features like a riving knife and blade guard, so they are perfectly capable machines. They're just built on a more compact, convenient scale for smaller jobs and spaces. Now for the classic, the 10-inch table saw. This has been the standard for decades and for good reason. Almost every tool brand makes a 10-inch model, from portable job site versions to massive cabinet saws. For this comparison, we're focusing on the popular job site models from brands like DeWalt, Bosch, and Rigid. These are a step up in size and power from the 8 1/4 inch saws. They typically cost a bit more, ranging from $400 to over $600, but they offer more capability for that extra cash. The biggest advantage of the 10-inch saw is its versatility. The larger blade gives you a deeper cut, easily slicing through a 4x4 in one go. You also get a much wider variety of blades to choose from. Dado stacks for cutting grooves, fine finish blades, and more are readily available in this size. The rip capacity is usually more generous, letting you handle larger sheets of plywood. While still portable, they are heavier and bulkier than their smaller cousins. They are for the woodworker who wants to tackle a wider range of projects and has a bit more space to work with. To really see what these saws can do, we need a good test project. We're going to build a simple plywood box. This might sound basic, but it's the perfect challenge. A box requires several types of cuts that will highlight the strengths and weaknesses of each saw. We'll need to make rip cuts, which are cuts along the grain of the wood. We will also need to make cross cuts, which go against the grain, and to make it interesting, we'll cut some bevels, angled cuts, for mitered corners. This will test the saw's accuracy and power. The first step with any project is breaking down your material. For our box, we'll start with a small sheet of 3/4 inch plywood. Using the 8 1/4 inch saw, the first thing I noticed was how easy it was to set up. It's light, so I can just plop it on my workbench. Ripping the plywood into strips for the box sides was straightforward. The motor handled the 3/4 inch plywood without any bogging down. However, the smaller table surface meant I had to be extra careful to support the plywood sheet. An outfeed stand is almost a necessity here to keep things stable. Next, I switched over to the 10-inch saw to make the same cuts. The larger table surface immediately felt more supportive and stable. I didn't feel like I was fighting to control the plywood sheet as much. The saw's motor felt a little more powerful, slicing through the wood with slightly less effort, though the difference wasn't dramatic on this material. Setting the fence for the rip cuts felt a bit more robust and precise on the larger saw. The rack and pinion fence systems on many 10-inch models are fantastic for accuracy, and that really shines in a project like this where all the pieces need to be identical. After ripping the sides to width, it was time for crosscuts to get them to the right length. This requires a miter gauge. On both saws, the stock miter gauges are just okay. They get the job done, but there's some slop in the miter slot. The 8 1/4-inch saw handled the crosscuts fine, but again, the limited table space was noticeable. With the 10-inch saw, there was more room in front of the blade, which makes it easier and safer to position the workpiece before the cut. For both saws, an aftermarket miter gauge or a crosscut sled would be a huge upgrade for accuracy. Now let's get into the direct comparison, starting with cutting power and precision. For our plywood box, both saws had enough power. The 10-inch saw felt a bit smoother, but the 8 1/4-inch model was no slouch. Where the difference really shows up is with thicker, harder wood. If you plan on regularly cutting 2-inch thick maple or oak, the more powerful motor and larger blade of the 10-inch saw will be a clear winner. It will struggle less and give you a cleaner cut. For precision, the 10-inch saw's better fence system generally gives it an edge for repeatability right out of the box. Ease of use is a tale of two stories. The 8 1/4-inch saw is undeniably easier to move, set up and store. If your shop is also your driveway, this is a massive advantage. You'll be more likely to pull it out for a quick cut because it's just less hassle. However, during the actual cutting process, the 10-inch saw is often easier to use. The larger table provides better work support, which makes you feel more in control. The controls for blade height and bevel angle are often a bit larger and smoother to operate on the 10-inch models, making adjustments less fiddly. Let's talk about blade selection, which is a huge deal. The 10-inch size is the industry standard, meaning you have a massive selection of blades. You can find blades for any task ripping, cross-cutting, cutting laminates, and more. Most importantly, you can get a dado stack, which is a special set of blades used to cut wide grooves, or dados. This is essential for many joinery techniques in woodworking. The 8 1/4-inch size has a much more limited selection, and you cannot use a dado stack with them. This is probably the single biggest limitation of the smaller saw for a serious hobbyist. Safety features are pretty comparable on modern saws of both sizes. Both will come with a riving knife to prevent kickback, anti-kickback pawls, and a blade guard. The principles of safe operation are exactly the same. However, I'd argue the larger, more stable platform of the 10-inch saw can contribute to safer operation, especially for beginners. A wobbly or unstable setup is a recipe for disaster, and the extra weight and size of the 10-inch saw make it feel more planted and secure during a cut, reducing the chance of the whole unit shifting unexpectedly. So after all that, which saw wins? The truth is, it depends entirely on you. The 8 1/4-inch table saw is a fantastic choice for a specific type of woodworker. If you have a very small shop, or no dedicated shop at all, its portability is a game changer. If you primarily work with thinner materials like plywood and 1x boards for simple DIY projects and home repairs, it has all the power you need. It's also more affordable, leaving you with more money for other tools. Its biggest con is the inability to use a dado stack and the limited blade selection. The 10-inch table saw is the undisputed champion of versatility. If you have the space and the budget, it's almost always the better long-term investment. The ability to cut thicker materials in a single pass, the massive selection of blades, and the option to use a dado stack open up a whole new world of woodworking projects. The larger table and more robust fence make it more pleasant and accurate to use. It's the saw that can grow with you as your skills and ambitions expand. The main downsides are its higher cost and larger footprint. So here's my final recommendation. For most people starting in woodworking who think this will be a long-term hobby, I recommend stretching your budget for the 10-inch saw. The added capability, especially the dado stack option, is something you will almost certainly want down the road. Buying a 10-inch saw from the start saves you from having to upgrade later. It's the more complete woodworking tool. Think of it as buying a slightly bigger pair of shoes for a kid. It gives you room to grow into it. But that doesn't mean the 8¼ inch saw is a bad choice. If you are positive that your space is limited, and your projects will stay small scale, it is a perfectly capable and wonderful machine. It's 1,000 times better than not having a table saw at all. Now I want to hear from you. What saw do you have? Do you agree with my take? Let me know in the comments. For more info, check out reviews on YouTube and articles on sites like Fine Woodworking, and as always, stay tuned for more projects and tips to help you build cool stuff.